You are never going to believe what happened to me yesterday. I died. No, seriously, I did. I fell off this very ledge and died. But Paul brought me back to life. Let me tell you about it. My name is Eutychus, which means fortunate, and today I think I'm living up to that. I feel like I am the luckiest man alive. But a bit of backstory is probably helpful for you here. A few months ago, my friend Alexandros invited me to go listen to this guy named Paul preach. He was a Jewish man who was talking about another Jewish man named Jesus, who he believed to be the long-awaited Messiah in Judaism, and he was trying to get people to follow in the way. That's what he was calling it. You know, I was pretty happy with my own gods, thank you very much, but Alexandros seemed so excited, and I hate to let a buddy down, so I went along, but I really wasn't expecting much. But oh, wow, was I wrong. I don't know what came over me that day, but before the end of the event, I was pledging myself to this God and his son Jesus, along with a lot of other folks from the crowd, including Alexandros. Since then, we had been doing our best to live in the way of our new faith, caring for one another, sharing meals and worship together, being charitable. Paul hadn't been able to stay for very long the last time, but he was pretty helpful in writing letters to us to offer guidance and leadership as we tried to figure out what it meant to be a community on the way. Last week, Paul came back into town, and yesterday he had announced that it would be his last night for a while, maybe even forever, and that we should gather for a meal and some friendly conversation, just get together. Alexandros and I were eager to go, as was pretty much everybody else in our group, so there was quite a crowd in that upstairs room when we started the meeting. The night started out pretty much like every other gathering did, with a whole lot of different conversations happening at the same time, lots of good food, lots of laughter, lots of conversation. Somewhere along the way, everyone started listening to Paul as he started preaching again. We were trying to soak in all that we could from him because we knew that it would be a long time before we saw him again, and it would probably still be a long time even before our next letter. Now, I have to say, I love Paul, and I'm so grateful that he brought me to this faith, but he's not really a great preacher. He tends to take a while to get to his point, but when he gets there, it's usually a good one. And his voice, it's pretty monotone. We all value his wisdom, and we were so glad to be there when he spoke, but last night he just kept going and going and going. I was glad that I had claimed a seat on the windowsill where there was a bit of fresh air coming in as some of the lamps sputtered out and then new ones were lit and the room got a little smoky. But what Paul lacks in eloquence when he speaks, he more than makes up for in his eagerness and his zeal for his topic. Every time he speaks, it's almost as if you can see his energy radiating from him. The excitement in his voice is amazing. I love that about him. And it's that same type of eagerness for God that I want to have in my own life as well. It's why I was there in the first place, even after a long day of work. So trust me when I say that I tried really hard to stay awake while Paul was preaching. I wanted to savor the moment and learn everything that I could from him, but he talked for a really long time. At about the 4-hour mark, I could feel my eyes starting to close and I started pinching myself so I could stay awake. But as we approached midnight and the 6-hour mark, I knew I was fighting a losing battle. Somewhere along the way, I fell solidly asleep. And that's where my troubles began. I fell out the window. I feel like an idiot. I never even contemplated the possibility as I was fighting off sleep. But apparently, just as Paul was making a really big point and every eye was on him, I started to slip. Alexandros tells me that he watched it happen as if time was standing still and there was nothing he could do to change the outcome. Thanks, buddy. Out of the corner of his eye, he says he saw my feet where my head should have been. And before he could register that there was something wrong with that picture, I was in free fall. I hit the ground with a splat and died. One of the first people to come rushing out of the house, other than Alexandros, who I have to say was pretty quick on the uptake, was one of Paul's companions, a man named Luke, who happens to be a doctor. He rushed to my side to see if he could help, but there was nothing he could do except pronounce me dead. A fall from a 3-story building isn't really a survivable event. And I can just hear the jokes that I'm sure would have been going around town today. I just hear them laughing. Eutychus, bored to death by sermon. Eutychus, so eager to meet God that he died just to get there. Eutychus, the misfortunate. But thankfully, I was saved that fate and the burning rumors when Paul came rushing outside and brought me back to life. As I laid there on the ground, Paul came over and gathered me into his arms, assuring the crowd that everything was fine, that I was still alive. And in that moment, I started breathing again. Through the power of God at work in Paul, I was brought back to life. What an amazing gift that was. Once I was breathing again, Paul went back into the room after gently placing me on the ground. He went back upstairs and gathered the people away from the window. Thank you for that, Paul. He had some more food, and then he continued preaching and preaching and preaching until dawn. Or at least that's what others tell me, because I wasn't allowed to go back. Alexandros made sure that I went home and went to bed, even though I have never felt so full of vim and vinegar. I have never felt so full of life. You know, I hope that one day I get to see Paul again. He was already gone by the time I got back this morning. I hope that I get to thank him for what he did for me yesterday. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna do my best to live this second chance at life in the best way that I know how, full of the same eagerness and zeal for God that Paul has. You know, those of us who follow the way, we meet every Sunday after work. If you'd like to come and join us, we would be glad to have you. It would be wonderful to have some new faces in our group. Come have a meal with us, learn more about Jesus. And we promise that when we preach, we'll try not to bore you to death.